probably the scariest part of a parent is one day we may not be there, right, to care for this child.
All parents know nobody can care for their child quite like they can. And if your child has special needs, feeling sure they'll be well cared for into the future comes with its own unique considerations. Every kid and every family is different, but there are key ways to support your peace of mind through financial planning. Hello, and welcome to Money on Your Mind from Edelman Financial Engines. I'm Michael Liersch, a behavioral scientist, financial planner, and your chief planning officer at EFE. Thanks for joining us for a conversation about how people are feeling about money, what they're wrestling with, and how financial planning can help you straighten things out. Today, we're talking with Keith Truex, an EFE financial planner. Keith, welcome to Money on Your Mind.
Great. Thank you. It's good to be here.
So Keith, we got to know each other a little bit before this podcast, and you've been at EFE now for 4.5 years?
Yep. But
you've been in the industry for over 3 decades. Mm-hmm. You don't have to tell anyone how old you are, Keith. I promise. And in that conversation, we talked a bit about your family circumstances, situations. You have a special needs son. And you've also had a journey to become a financial planner, professionally speaking. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal and your professional passions around serving clients, and also in particular about special needs?
Sure. Thank you. So I have a son, Elliot, who's 10 years old, and he has an ultra rare genetic variant that causes global developmental delays in motor skills, speech, things like that. And he requires kind of full-time care. He's a cute little guy and scoots all over the place, but we have to kind of keep an eye on him so he doesn't get in trouble sometimes. So that's a huge part of our family, and everything kind of revolves around him and what we need to do. Traveling and things like that are always a little bit, extra planning sometimes. So we have really firsthand experience in taking care of Elliot and his needs and such. So it's fun, it's challenging, but it's all good.
And by ultra rare, what do you mean exactly?
So they've identified 17 children in the world with this particular gene variant. Based on studies they've done, he's part of something called the Undiagnosed Disease Network, which rare diseases are put on this global network of doctors and researchers to look at and help to find cures possibly.
Wow.
So he's like the face of, it's called EZH1, if you want to get technical. That's the gene that they've identified that he has that causes these delays. So it's quite unique. And there's no cure per se, which there aren't for a lot of things. So we trug through day to day and make sure we give him the best opportunity to thrive as we can.
Well, he sounds like a lucky young man to have a great family, great parents, and has an older sister who I saw a picture of taking care of her little brother. Now, when it comes to the financial aspects of things, so that's a bit about your personal situation. How do you bring that into your financial planning experiences with your clients, just with people in general, and help them understand that there's those emotional and familial implications, but there's also the financial ones? What does that look like and sound like? How have you brought that into your practice?
Yeah, so that's a big part of it. So when we sit down for the first time with families and get to know them, get to know their situations, what's important to them, their needs, their concerns, we're always talking about their children and things they like to do. So understanding when they have special needs children, which they're always forthcoming with. And I'm always very intrigued by that. And I share my experience with them so they, I can relate to that. I'm living it like they are. Having compassion and empathy, understanding what they're going through from a personal level is a big part of it. And then that kind of moves into the financial aspect of, what plans do we have in place? Let's talk about this. Let's put some projections on paper, essentially, to see what do your retirement look like? What are the needs of your child? What financial needs do they have? What care needs do they have? Every client of mine is different. I have a lot of clients with special needs children, and they're at all ends of the spectrum. From some are independent, living on their own, having a job. Some are 24/7 care. So it depends on the needs and the demands it puts on the family. So that's something we want to understand going into it from a planning standpoint to understand what financial means do the family have, how much do they allocate to the child, how can that affect their retirement situation. So getting the big picture is a huge part of it and understanding what that looks like down the road.
So Keith, thank you so much for sharing that with us, your personal story, and then how you really open the dialogue with your clients. So let's get right into it. And the listeners that we have, they really want to know from you, how you frame up think of it as the financial implications of having a special needs family member. So you mentioned this range of human beings, from those who need 24/7 care at a very early age, a lot of time and capacity from family members for care as well within that framework, all the way to the more independent. Can you give us some thoughts and ideas in that range for what people should be thinking about tactically speaking? Like, how do they get in the moment the things they need? And then we'll move to the more strategic ones, like trusts and things like that.
Yeah, so it's understanding the needs, number one, and what financial demands are on the family to be able to care for that child. There are services provided from state, disability benefits, Medicaid sometimes, understanding what you're eligible for. That's a big part of helping families care for their children.
And how would people find that out, where they're eligible for help or support?
To be honest, it's not easy.
Okay.
It's not openly out there in your face saying this is what we have for you. So it can be a bit challenging, where you need to dig in a bit to state websites, benefit websites regarding Medicaid or supplemental Social Security income. Those sites will explain eligibility requirements. So that's where I would start to understand if you qualify. Some families do, some don't, depending on their means. So understanding that and what you have in resources available. And then beyond that, it's your own resources from current employment, from savings, investments they have, to sometimes family members can help out from a financial standpoint or a care standpoint, as you kind of alluded to as well, is when there's higher demands to care for a child, you need help, right? You need respite. It's not easy on just the parents to handle all that, where somebody else can come in and help. And sometimes that costs money to have somebody come in and watch your child for several hours a day. Those are additional costs that can add up for families like this as well. So really understanding the financial impact that your child has and what it requires is a key part of planning and understanding what's required of this family over time and into the future.
So how do you help families balance the needs of a special needs family member or multiple special needs family members with their own needs? So think of it in retirement, making sure they have enough money. So parents and grandparents, so there's not an overgiving situation where then everyone is in a struggle or a financial crunch.
Yeah, so when it comes to state aid, for example, there are eligibility requirements where you sometimes can't have any assets in the child's name. So that's where special needs trust can come into play, where any monies that are going to be given to the child for their care would go into a trust, which means they don't own it. So that's a big part of proper planning, especially from an estate standpoint. In any monies you may leave to the child down the road, from an inheritance standpoint, to make sure they're cared for.
And that gets into the conversation in a family about care, about money. So how do you, when you set up that special needs trust, when you set up a will, how do you start having that conversation about who's going to be responsible if something happens to you as the primary caregiver or financial earner?
Having firsthand knowledge and living it, it's probably the scariest part of a parent is one day we may not be there, right, to care for this child.
In general, for any children.
Yes, exactly. So having put the groundwork in play to have conversations with your family, with your uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, whoever it is that you want to designate to be their guardian, right, at some point in the future when you are not there to care for them or you can't care for them, that's a massive step to take that cloud over your head to say, okay, we've already planned this. You're going to be the one that's going to care. That's a huge part of planning from an estate standpoint. Yep. And then regarding the special needs trust.
Before you get there, what does that conversation look like? How do you get those family members together? How do you broach it? That's what our listeners would want to know.
Yeah, it's really sitting down and having a conversation and saying, hey, listen, this is what we're thinking. We're not going to be here forever. We would like you to be able to care for our child if we're not here or can't do it in the future. What do you think about that? It's just really an open dialogue and trying to find the best person suited to be able to handle that, because it's a big burden you're putting on them. And, the financial part comes with that, but just from the care standpoint, it's really just having a dialogue and asking if they're willing to do that and serve in this role for you. And if they're uncomfortable with it, which some might be, okay, who's the next choice and who's the next choice? And that can be really challenging sometimes to ask that of a family member, but as challenging for them to take that on sometimes. So that's a big part of living a life with a special needs child, is ensuring they are cared for with the right person.
So that's really great advice. You just have to take it step by step, start somewhere, start with the first person who you feel would be best to play that role of guardian, and ultimately the supportive individual for a special needs human being, and go from there. So thank you for that. Now you were going to go into special needs trusts. So
that's as important, because whoever you designate to care for your child is going to need funds to do that, right? So that's where you're potentially creating this trust for your child. If they need the financial means to be able to take care of them when you're not there, that trust can serve as that. So any money you're leaving to them, for families who may not have a lot of financial assets, they can have a life insurance policy. And then importantly is naming a trustee to oversee these funds for your child, somebody who's familiar with finances and would be able to navigate that and take money out for the child's benefit.
So let's go into then mistakes that people make when it comes to trying to help a special needs family member and really be supportive in life, and if something happens to them. What do you see? What's the number one mistake? Our listeners like to know this information.
Probably the biggest thing is the estate planning aspect, where it's not done yet or not thought out to the extent that it should be in naming all these parties that are really important. A lot of times the child will be named as a beneficiary on a financial account or in a life insurance policy. If that's the case, they're going to inherit that money in their name, which can affect their benefits if they're receiving that we're talking about. So those are key things to look at that can trip somebody up that you might not even think about. And all of a sudden that money isn't going to go into the trust now. It's theirs, it's their possession, and that could affect benefits. So that's probably the most common mistake. And that's something I really dive deep into to understand how everything is structured, and do we need to change anything to make sure it's going to flow properly.
So that's interesting, this kind of estate, and just for all our listeners, there's this kind of estate disposition idea that if something happens to you, where does the money flow next? It's really important to map that out to your point,
right? So
that you can tell, is it falling in the right place, in the right container, in the right hands, so that family member can be cared for in the most productive way. So,
and along the same lines, other children you may have that don't have special needs, monies can be left for them directly, and then you can allocate a certain percentage towards the trust for that particular child that needs it.
How do you navigate all these things with your clients, and how would you share the best way to have that open dialogue where no one feels judged about their perspectives?
Yeah, and there's never judgment, right? So, all different families I have sometimes leave their children different percentages because they don't need the funds, some need them more. And
so fair is not equal in this case.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's not always that
fair
way.
Fair is who needs it.
Sometimes it's who needs it more. Sometimes it's 50-50, a third, whatever the dynamic is.
So unique to the family dynamic. Then.
Absolutely. And then when it comes to when they're leaving funds to a special needs child, whoever is going to be caring for them sometimes will get more because they have to do a lot of extra things and there's more burden on them versus a child who doesn't need it, they may get less. So
that's interesting.
It really there's no right or wrong answer. It comes down to what's important to the family, what are their needs, how do the children react to that. So everyone's unique and relative.
So this is bringing up an interesting point, Keith, which is, have you ever had clients, because I have, articulate the why in a letter of wishes so that everyone is clear in writing out why things are designed in the way they are?
I'd say that tends to happen ahead of time in the conversation about here's why we're going to leave this person this person this. I have to say I haven't seen it written per se in a will or a trust that says this is why you're getting this or why you're getting this. I tend to promote having these conversations ahead of time so there are no surprises, because that's, things in a movie, right? Where
Yes.
you don't want that to happen. So I always try to get them to have these conversations earlier.
Yes.
A lot of families don't like to do it because they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to offend a child. So sometimes they don't, and the cards are going to fall where they do. And there may be some ill feelings at the end of the day, if you will. So that's up to them, obviously. But I always try to get open communication as much as a family can ahead of time so there are no surprises.
Super helpful. So what's one thing everyone should be thinking about or doing right now when it comes to special needs family member and having these types of conversations, or all the way to the financial planning and implementation of the conversation?
Yeah, it's having a plan, essentially. A lot of people kind of stick their head in the sand and let's do the best we can, but putting a plan in place, knowing what the finances look like now, what are they going to look like later, how much will you be able to leave your child perhaps, understanding all of that now and working towards that and avoiding mistakes now, doing the right things now puts you in a much better position later when these things need to be implemented perhaps. So that's one of the biggest things I see is they haven't really thought this all the way out yet. And it's really key to start doing that now.
So start now, because that could open the door to government services. That could open the door to making sure that you're giving money to the right people to support that special needs family member. And it could also help you not overgive so that you have the money you need to support that family member in life. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Keith, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your wisdom and also your personal story. It's quite meaningful. I know to me and all of our listeners, and to Edelman Financial Engines. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's everything we have for today. This has been Money on Your Mind. A big thanks to financial planner Keith Truex for joining me, and we'll be back next Wednesday with a new episode. Subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube so you don't miss it, and we'd appreciate it if you left us a rating too. I'm Michael Liersch from Edelman Financial Engines. Talk to you next time.